So we're going to take a journey this evening. We're going to go forward in Jewish history about 1,000 years or so. We were discussing Abraham, and we're now moving through to another Jewish year, which is the Jewish year of 2448. 2448. Does anyone know why that year is probably the only Jewish year? We're not, funny enough, in Judaism, we're not so into years, we're into months and the dates of the months and the years. Why, we'll discuss later on. But this is one year that you kind of got to know. It's one year you kind of got to know. What happened in the Jewish year 2448? That is, what is that? We're 5773? What is 5773? Going back to 2448, what is that? 3,000, I think. Carry the 5 plus 2, long division, plus about 3,322 years ago, something like that, right? What is that year famous for? Not all at once. So that was the year the Jewish people left Egypt. That's your ancestors, and we became a nation on the 15th day of the month of Nisan, and that's Pesach. We follow the same dates every year. The Hebrew word for a year is a shana. The word shana means to repeat, because the year repeats itself. So we left Egypt after 210 years of being in that country, and we multiplied to many, many, many more than we entered after hundreds of years of being there. And then 49 days after leaving Egypt, where were we as a people? Anyone know? It's like bookends. Very important bookends.
The Red Sea?
Red Sea was 7 days later. The 7th day of Passover, we're at the Reed Sea. Actually, it wasn't the Red Sea, the Reed Sea. Yam Suf, really. Called it the Red Sea, really isn't. And we're standing over there, that's right. That happened 7 days later. That's in between. That's good, though. You're in the right month. Actually, a month later, actually. Yeah, 49 days later, we're at Mount Sinai. We received the Torah, Mount Sinai. Sound familiar? Not the hospital on the Upper East Side. No. That's where the Jewish babies are born. No, I'm talking about Mount Sinai. So those 49 days are really, really crucial. And we actually follow those same 49 days. We celebrate Passover on the 15th of Nisan, on the same date, just like your parents did, and your grandparents, Pesach Seder, and they tell about their grandparents, and going back, whatever it is, 80 generations to that experience of leaving Egypt. That's when we became a people, a nation. We became an at that point. And to this day, we count 40, we literally count the days. Day 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, all the way to get to 49. And at 49, we have a Jewish holiday, which is called... Very good, you don't know. That's fantastic. That means you're in the right place. Shavuot is what you come to. Shavuot, very good. You said it? Very good. Very good. So Shavuot. So you have Pesach, 49 days Shavuot, following the same pattern we did when we left Egypt. Now, what happened after that? Well, what was meant to happen? What was the original? What was Plan A? Because Plan A didn't work. Plan A did not work. We had to go straight into Plan B, which wasn't as good, because Plan B is never as good as Plan A. What was Plan A? So Plan A was we were meant to get the Torah, and then we were meant to spend a few weeks schlepping from the Sinai Desert, which is in between Egypt and Israel, here, and a few weeks, right? Okay, we're Jews, maybe 6 weeks, ask directions, don't ask, he doesn't want to ask directions, you get lost a bit, make a left, make a right, but putting that in the whole, equation, you spend 6 weeks, let's say, and you end up in Israel. That was Plan A. Is that what happened? No, that's not what happened. What happened? So we had a certain problem with a little bit of idolatry, a small little calf that we built in the desert, which wasn't too surprising because there was a lot of idol worship which happened in Egypt, and the Jewish people were still connected to that idol worship, so we were still a bit of... So even though we came through the splitting of the sea, right, I'm sure you saw the movie, the sea split. Well, you should read the book, it's also very good. And the book tells us the sea split and the Jews walked through. And although we went through that amazing experience, that we still had to deal with a lot of other problems that we had. You could take the Jew out of Egypt, but it's hard to take Egypt out of the Jew. As I said to my wife, who's from Brooklyn, it's easy to take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the girl. And she's been out of Brooklyn for many years, and she's still Brooklyn. And you don't mess with Brooklyn. Especially not Canarsie. That's like deep inside. It's like deep, deep. So we had a problem that we didn't really, we got out physically, but we were still connected. It's like, when people leave prison, they sometimes like commit crimes again to go back in, being institutionalized. Like in that movie, Right. So Shawshank Redemption, the idea of people want to go back in, which sounds crazy, but becoming a people is a lot of responsibility, and they didn't want to step up at that time, wanted to actually go back. And many times they wanted to go back. You know what they complained about the most? This should resonate with you, by the way. The food. It's hard to believe that Jewish people complain about the food. I know it's hard to believe, but it's not a new thing. Now it's about the Chinese food. Back then, it was about the meat and the melon and the onions and the garlic that we had in Egypt. They want to go back in. So that generation did not make it into Israel. That generation had to die out. How long does it take for one whole generation to die out? 40 years. And that's why we're in the desert for 40 years. It wasn't that we didn't have GPS. Because we did have GPS. We had God's protection system. It's a joke. Whenever you're ready to laugh, just jump in. Right, but that wasn't enough. And we had to spend 40 years. They died out. So basically the children, actually if you were under 20 when you left Egypt, you got to go into Israel. Oh, and if you're a woman as well. Right, the women didn't sin with the golden calf. They remained pure, holy Jewish women, standing true to their beliefs. So that generation who were under 20, they got to go into the land of Israel. So here's my question. Are you ready for this? All this was a good intro to get to the question which I want to pose to you this evening. And it goes like this. We know the reason we left Egypt was to go into the land of Israel. That was the goal. That was that was plan A. And even plan B, we got there but 40 years too late. Not maybe on time, but much later than we anticipated. So the simple question I have for you, which I want you to put inside your cerebellums, is, if Israel is so important, and it is, and it's mentioned in the Jewish Bible 800 times, right? As to contrast, the Quran does not mention Israel once. Right? We mention Israel and Jerusalem hundreds and hundreds of times. It's a focus of ours, always has been. If it is so important, why wasn't the Torah given in the land of Israel? Is that a fair question? By the way, this is a question which you may think is a novel question. It's not my question. I'm not that smart, actually. It's the commentators asked this question. Actually, a German Jew called Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who actually came from Frankfurt on Main, where we stopped off for a couple of hours, maybe 1 hour, right? Remember, on the way to Poland? He was from that city, and he built up the Jewish community over there. And he asked this question. He's like, we're so into Israel. Why couldn't we just take in the Jews from Egypt into Israel and give them the Torah in Jerusalem? Well, we fly in, we'll hold hands, Hava, Nagila, Hava, yeah, da, da, da. And everyone's there, and yeah, you're watching it all, and by the wall, and when there wasn't a wall at that point, we get the idea, and Israel was still holy, and we could have done that. It's a very simple question. I'll take an answer from the crowd. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I mean, we spoke about the L's of Judaism, remember before? We have the language, Hebrew. We have the land. We have Israel. We have the law. So why could we just gone from Egypt into Israel? Because even according to plan A, the Torah was meant to be given on Mount Sinai, which is in the Sinai Desert, which is outside of Israel. Hit me. Okay. No, Mount Sinai is definitely not in the land of Israel. No, it's inside the Sinai Desert. It's a few weeks' walk away. It's definitely not in the land of Israel. That I can tell you for sure. Not that I've been there, but I know that. It was done deliberately. There's something very deliberate about this. Yes? You have to overcome the challenge in order to get... You've been coming to my classes, I hear that. Yes, you have to overcome the challenge. So what was the challenge?
The
Challenge
challenge is getting to Israel.
is getting to Israel. Okay. So why can't the reward then be in Israel? Let the challenge be the desert, which it was. We go through that challenge, and then we have a nice reward waiting for us. In other words, you're right, but it's the wrong way around. I mean, the answer to this question is going to be very, very important. It's not just a cute question. It's going to have major, major impact on who we are as a people. I mean, the answer to this question really, and its connected questions, is going to open up your Jewish life to you in a completely different way. Yes?
The Torah teaches Jews how to live, right?
Okay, now we're saying something good. You're saying the Torah teaches us how to live. Okay.
So you have to learn how to live like as a Jew before you get into Israel?
Why?
I don't think I answered that one.
Think about it now. You're on the right path. You're as we say in Hebrew, you're being Mechavin Rabbi Hirsch. You're on the same path as Rabbi Hirsch. There's many answers to this question, by the way. You can have your own answers. But he says something very similar to this, as well as something else. He says that don't make the mistake of thinking that Judaism is only about the land of Israel. Israel's a very, very important part. Actually, do you know what percentage of the laws of the Torah, of which there are 613, that's the golden number, 613, what percentage of those 613 can only be kept in the land of Israel? Hear the question? Of the 613 mitzvot, how many can only be kept in the land of Israel? Give me a percentage. As in, can't be kept anywhere else. 5%? 50%? You're right, 53%. Crazy. Anyone know of any laws they know about can only be kept in the land? There's actually one which we still keep that's only in the land of Israel. Anyone know what that is? It's the law of Shemitah. Every 7 years you have to leave your land fallow, which is a nice way of saying you can't touch it. Right? You cannot touch your land, it's left fallow. Just like you have a Shabbat every 7 days, the land of Israel has its own Shabbat. Torah speaks about it. And therefore, to this day, they do not work the land. If you walk into the land and you see something growing, it's hefker, it's ownless. You can just grab it. There's a nice apple, whoop, pick it off the tree. It doesn't belong to anyone. Right? You can't work the soil. If something comes out during that year, then that's fine. So that's a law that you can only keep in the land of Israel. All the laws of the temple. There were so many things that happened in the holy Jewish temple in Jerusalem. You can't keep that anywhere else because that's only... If you add them all up, the laws of kings, right? King of Israel, his laws only in Israel. So you add up all these laws, you get to 53%. So, just like you were saying, before I can go into the land, I got to know what to do. And by the way, this is unbelievable. There is not another nation in the world that's ever done this. It always works the same way. You go to a country, people get together, make a society. They're like, we've got to make laws, we're going to kill each other. Okay, can't steal, can't murder, on and on and on. That's the way it always works. They came to America from England. Remember that? Right? We came, and we're like, okay. Blah, blah, blah. So they say, we've got to make it. So the Constitution, where was the Constitution written? It wasn't written in England. They wrote it here. This is our country. We're the only nation, think about this, in the history of the world where first of all we have the law, the Torah, and the law was taken into Israel, and that became our law over there. So one answer is because I got to know what to do in the land. It's a very special place, a very holy land. Eretz HaKodesh. Kodesh, it's holy, it's separate, it's distinct, not the same. That's what the holy actually means. So when I take it out, I've got to be ready. I'll give you another answer. Another answer is, had the law been given in Israel, what might you have thought? Very correctly. Very correctly. You might have thought something. What's that? That the land and the law are linked. That means if you leave the land, you don't have to keep the law, which is absolute common sense. I mean, look at America. There are laws we have to abide by over here, right? You cannot steal, you can't take drugs. You know, that's a law, by the way. There's actually a law. Come on, Rabbi, you're punking me. No, seriously, you can't take drugs. Right? So, you can't take drugs. However, if you want to go abroad as an American citizen, and you want to go to somewhere in Europe to visit Anne Frank house, and on the way, you happen to pass one of these places where they have various fungi. That's why they call me Mr. Mushroom. I'm a fun guy to be with. Inside the menu, right? You won't get into trouble. They won't arrest you here. Why? Because that's the law of that land. You get the difference. Although you're an American citizen, you have to abide by American laws in America. And there may be exceptions to this, to be fair. But you get the idea. If you go to another country where that law does not apply, and it's okay to do that thing in that country, then you can do it. And you can come back to America, you can fly back, literally. And when you get here, you will be allowed to carry on as normal, because the two are separate. Right? You get me? Okay. Had the Torah been given in Israel, you made the same mistake. I only have to be Jewish when I'm in Israel. But when I leave Israel, it doesn't apply. So that means the Torah had to be given outside of the land of Israel. Why? for one really important reason. What's that? So that when the Jews were going to be kicked out, which we knew we were going to be, because that's what the prophets told us, and we knew, well, nothing was for sure, but chances were we weren't going to stay there for a long time. When we were to be kicked out, although we didn't have the land, we could still have the law. And even though we've lost the language, we'd still have the law. And that's what we've been for 2,000 years. For 2,000 years, until 60, 70 years ago, we were a landless people, yet we were still attached to our Judaism, not through the land, and for most people, not through the language. Most Jews don't speak Hebrew or read Hebrew, unfortunately. So the only thing we have to hold on to is the law itself. So the law has to be given outside the land. So when we say law, let's put this together. We say Torah. Now the word Torah is a very good word. You know what the word actually means, Torah? What does the word Torah actually mean? I mean, I know it means the scroll, right, in your local temple. But what does the word Torah actually mean? This relates to other words. So one word is hora'ah. It's a teaching. It teaches what to do. That's the Jewish guide. That's our survival guide. That's our, a dishwasher comes with a guide. So that's our guide. That's how we know how to do stuff. But it also is related to the word ora. Torah hi ora. Ora is light. It lights up the way for us. It shows us where we're going. It gives us a vision. It says God's way of saying this is a great plan for the Jewish people. And that's what it is. And interesting enough, it has become the greatest selling book in world history. All right? But, I mean, that's all well and good. However, that's not what we care about, because books can just sit on the shelf, you know. The key we want to do is that something that we understand and engage in. Okay? Someone had a question.
Yeah. So is this kind of prioritize the who over the where? Like you need to define, one needs to define themselves before they define.
Very, very nice. Yes. In other words, the who over the where. The title of Judaism is Torah. That's our banner. Within that, there's different subdivisions. There's the language, there's a land, there's bagels, there's Rosh Hashanah. Right? All these things are important, you know what I'm saying, parts of it. But when it comes down to what it really is this thing called the Torah, which, once we said, had to be given outside because it's bigger than any one place. And interesting enough, there's only one Jewish holiday in the entire Torah that has no date. We know the date because we count 49 days from Passover. But there's a holiday. We know the date of Pesach. We know the date of Rosh Hashanah. We know the date of Yom Kippur. We know the date of Purim, of Hanukkah. We know all the dates. But the only holiday that has no date in the Torah is Shavuot, the re-giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Remember that? Why has it got no date? And we know that it's the same date every year. It's 49 days from Pesach. It doesn't change. So why doesn't the Torah actually give a date? And the answer is because not only is it bigger than any one space, it's also bigger than time. And once you put a date on something, you've killed it. Haven't you? It's like your birthday. You count, you're there. Day after your birthday, oh, got to start again. It's depressing, right? What a letdown. What an anticlimax. Can't do that with the Torah. The Torah is bigger than time and bigger than space. The greatest space in the world, Israel. And the greatest time, Shavuot, it's bigger. You can't house it. And actually the Torah was given in Hebrew. But very soon after, it was translated into many, many languages. So that when the Jews were going to be in different places, there'd at least be a source. You say in Hebrew, a shoresh, a root, that all these other nations would be able to have a little glimpse into and feel something to do with it. So it's bigger than the Jewish people. We're just fulfillers of it. We're part of it. So now we're saying, wow, being Jewish is quite a lot now. It's a land, it's a language, it's the law, and it's timeless. So when we say 613 mitzvos, as I said, it's impossible to keep all 613 for one person. I told you this already, this last week, no? You'd have to be a man and a woman, which is possible in some parts of Manhattan, but you'd have to also be, you'd also have to be a king. You'd have to be a priest. You'd have to live 2,000 years ago and today. You'd have to be a farmer. It's impossible for one person to keep all 613. When we say 613, we mean all the Jewish people over the entire world for all of Jewish history. You know what we're saying? The Jewish people isn't like separate generations. It's one big, fluid whole which we started last week with Abraham, and now we're jumping forward to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is a really important moment because that's when we became a nation. And that's why Abraham was really great. We discussed that last week with his wife. Why wasn't the Torah given just to Abraham and Sarah? This is another really important question. Are you following me so far, by the way? Great. If the Abraham was so great, we spoke about Abraham, then why wasn't the Torah just given to him and his wife? Abraham, you're fantastic, chesed, all the kindness you did, and you served me, and you know what? Here's your Torah. He's walking around the desert. Could have done that. That's not the way it happened. 7:40? God bless you. Excuse me. So it was a fast day today. Not Yom Kippur, don't panic. It was the day after Rosh Hashanah, it was a fast day, so that was good. Okay. I just needed that. Thank you. Why not? Why couldn't Abraham, this is a really important question, by the way. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say if you hear the answer to this question, you're going to see the difference between Judaism and every other religion. So this is really important. Why couldn't the Torah have been given just to Abraham and his wife Sarah? They were trustworthy. They were very great people. Their descendants were going to fulfill it. So why didn't they get the Torah? Why do you have to wait so long for this whole, it was their descendants, right? They had a child, Isaac, right? We had a wife, Rebecca, right? We had their son Jacob, Rachel and Leah. They had 12 tribes, 12 sons who became families, became tribes, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Yosef, and Binyamin, the 12 tribes. We're tribal people, which means basically large families. We all come from one tribe, Yehuda, unless you're a Cohen or a Levi, and then you come from the tribe of Levi. But most people today come from either Judah or Levi. And they grew up, and they expanded to become big families, went into Egypt, got taken out, Pesach. So why couldn't the Torah have been given to Abraham and Sarah? It's almost a childish question, but it's really important. Any answers to that one? Hold on to it. I want someone else about it. Why couldn't the Torah be given to them? Incredible answer. You've got to hear this. You've got to hear this. This is unbelievable. It was worth my mother having if you hear this one answer. Every other religion always starts that way. Always one person, and usually a man, receives the truth and then passes it down. We're the only nation in the history of the world, the only religion that makes the following claim. Does anyone know what the claim is? That the Torah wasn't given to one person when he was by himself, sitting at home, watching TV, drinking a beer, eating his popcorn. I mean, since the beginning of time, there have been 22, experts say, 22,000 sects, cults, and religions. You can put all of them on one side and Judaism on the other. That's a big claim to make. But this is for sure. Why? Because we're the only religion that claims the Torah, God spoke, and every religion's got a claim. And all comes, yeah, they're all good, everyone loves each other, but in the end, they all have a claim of how they started. And our claim is completely different from everyone else. I want you to think about why. Because they could have made the same claim, but they didn't. Because actually, you'll see, they couldn't have. And that is God spoke to the entire Jewish people. The Torah wasn't given to one person. It was given to millions of men and women and children at the same time. No other religion even makes that claim. Why is that important? Who cares? So fine, Islam says one person, Muhammad, was by himself, was actually with his donkey, right? When he heard God speak to him. Or the angel Gabriel, it's one of our heroes, right? Just for interest. Okay, and he hears God, and he becomes the chosen one. And Jesus is by himself when the miracles happen, right? Maybe there's a few people around him, to be fair. Right? But there's no mass revelation. Not even a claim of it. Why is that so important? Why am I making such a big deal out of that? Yeah?
We don't have idols, and the one person that is given the laws and the other religions are idolized?
It could be they're idolized. Interesting enough, Islam is not an idol-worshipping religion. We have a lot more in common with Islam than we do with Christianity. Christianity, we consider to be more of an idol-worshipping religion. It isn't fully, really. But it's got hints of it, you know. They believe that Jesus is the Son of God, like came from God, right? You walk into a church, he's up on the wall, you know. His mother's up there, the whole mishpacha, right? Everyone's up there. So but Islam, no. Islam says Muhammad was a prophet. And they see Jesus a prophet. And by the way, they see Moses. One of the books of the Quran, one of the chapters is Musa. That's Moses. One's called David. These are our Jewish heroes. Right? They look at Ibrahim and Sarah. Great people. So that could have been a concern, but it's a concern for us too. It's a little bit more than that. What is it? So it goes like this. You see, how do we know something is history as opposed to something being legend? George Washington. Did he live? Right? Jackie, you sure? Not a question? You met him? Did you meet someone who met him? Did anyone in your immediate family meet him? But you know he existed. What even a question? There's a story of George Washington about a certain cherry tree. And there was a cherry tree that was, I guess, on his property. And it was cut down. And he was accused of chopping down the cherry tree. Everyone heard this story? And he says, I cannot tell a lie. It was I did it. Did that happen? Did that event happen? I'm asking seriously. Did that event happen? Who said no? How do you know?
I can't prove it.
You can't prove it. 100%. So the answer is, I don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. If I told you that George Washington had 6 fingers on one hand, and that's why he always wore a glove. History or legend? It's legend. I don't know. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But he definitely existed. Right? The Holocaust. Did that happen? How do we know? I'm being serious. How do we know? Witnesses? How many? How many? Not many anymore. Dying off all the time. What else do we have? And did they witness 6 million people? What else do we have from the Holocaust? I'm being serious. Diaries, written records, plagiarized, trying to get world sympathy. Video footage, you saw Schindler's List. 90% of it was filmed in Hollywood, only 10%. You can make fake video footage. Photographs. It's a big problem. And that's 60 years later. I got an idea. Let's start a society. Because we've got to keep up the memory of the Holocaust, don't we? And we've seen all these testimonies and videos, and there's still people denying the Holocaust. Aren't there? Heads of states, college professors, not just like some like random Joe on the street. Big people deny it happened. 100,000 people, 1 million people. How are we going to prove it? I have an idea. Check out this idea. Let's start a society called the Holocaust Memorial Society, HMS. And what we're going to do is, if you're a survivor, or a child of a survivor, or a grandchild of a survivor, we are going to make you part of this society. And you're going to wear a yellow star all the time. Imagine that. And if someone says, what's that yellow star on your sleeve? You'd be like, my great-grandfather, he was in Bergen-Belsen, he had to wear this star. And if you're a member of the HMS, direct descendant, you have to have the tattoo number of your great-grandmother who was in Auschwitz-Birkenau. You're like, what's that on your arm? I'm like, see, my father had this, and my grandfather, and it goes back to my great-grandfather. Back in Birkenau, he had this as well. Not only that, once a year, if you're a member of the HMS, you have to get together with your family, whoever's a member of the HMS, and you're going to have a meal to remember how difficult it was in Mauthausen, in Auschwitz. And when you're going to eat at this meal, you're going to eat what your ancestor ate in the Holocaust. you're going to have an old, hard bread. And you're going to take a potato peel, because that's what they lived on. And you're going to take some, I don't know, salt water, to remember all the tears that came down at that time. And you're going to dip the potato peel. This potato peel is what my great-great-grandmother ate. Because my grandfather did, and my father, and me, and I'm part of that line. So don't tell me the Holocaust never happened. And once a year, to remember all the displaced peoples after the Holocaust, they lived in tents, in these DP camps. So we're going to leave our houses, and we're going to move into a tent for 7 days with a leaky roof. And people are like, what are you doing? And you're like, well, this is the tent that my great-great-grandparents lived in, and my father's done this, my grandfather. Oh, we have a direct line all the way back to that original Holocaust. So don't tell me it never happened. And let's see your friends say, oh, what a beautiful society. Can I join? I want to be a member of the HMS. What would you say? What for? But it's so beautiful. You eat this hard, crispy, terrible bread and eat the potato peel and you wear the star and the tattoo. And it's just, what would you say to them? You don't need to. You're fine as you are. This is a direct personal thing. But I want to. I really, really want to. Like, you sure? Because it's a lot of responsibility. They're like, yeah, I really want to. I want to be part of it. You're like, okay. But you're going to have to get the tattoo. And you're going to have to wear the star. And you're going to have to eat this bread once a year and live in that tent. They're like, fine. And you're not going to break it, are you? No. I really want to be part of it. Why, because you have friends? No, I feel a connection to this event. I want people to know about this event. Like, okay. Study. You don't have to. You're fine as you are. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You're perfect. But if you want to, you're going to have to follow the rules. And we're going to take a written testimony of 10,000 survivors. Each one of them is going to write a paragraph. And we're going to make it into a scroll. And everyone gets a piece of the scroll, a full version of the scroll, wherever you are, HMS around the world. You're in France, Russia, China, and we're going to read a piece of this scroll every single week. And wherever you are, it's the same piece. So we're all connected. And people say to you, what are you doing? Like, well, this is a testimony of my great... I'm like, give me an eraser. I don't like this word over here. Can I erase this word? You're like, what? Why would you do that? Well, it doesn't really sound so good anymore. Like, it's not what it sounds like. It's what it says. And you can't just change words. Because if you change a word, it could change it from Hitler to Mittler. And you could change a number. It goes from 6 million to 2 million. And we've lost a lot. So every letter is precious. You seeing the connection? So we don't have the star. We have tzitzit and to fill in. And we have the circumcision rather than numbers. And we have Passover and Sukkot and all the Jewish holidays. Pretty much all of them will be connected, and many of the mitzvot, to this whole Egypt experience, which our ancestors went through. So you can't tell me it never happened. Why? Because one guy was by himself and heard the story. Because maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But if it's a national event, so it's quantitative, but also qualitative, that all of your ancestors were there, it's not a private story that happened to my family that I'm going to share with you, then suddenly it becomes the entire people's. And it becomes a national mission, not one guy just spreading what he thinks to be the truth. So the only other question we have now is, then why don't the other religions claim this? Why don't they make the same claim? Why doesn't the Pope stand on the balcony in the Vatican and say, I got something to tell you. We didn't share it before. But 200 years ago, all of your ancestors heard God speak. That's a great claim to make. Is that a great claim? And tell us that the Christians are the chosen people. Why doesn't he do that? Because you can't. Because what would we say? Everyone would say, I would have heard about it. A mass revelation does not happen without everyone hearing about it. If I told you that in San Francisco, a gold tree came up in my grandmother's backyard 100 years ago and disappeared in one day? True, not true? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe George Washington did have 6 fingers on one hand. Maybe he did chop down the tree. Maybe it's maybe no. But if I told you that all of San Francisco was covered in golden trees for a few days, you would say that for sure did not happen. Why? Because we would have heard about it. The great gold tree rush of San Francisco, 1902. There would have been something about it. There would have been a story, a legend, something. You can't make that up. You can make up one person. Excalibur pulls the sword out of the stone. Maybe yes, maybe no. Jesus is the Messiah. He's resurrected. Not actually seen resurrected. We see him dead, and then we see someone who looks like him walking around. You can have something about Islam and an idea that has been, but you can't make up a mass revelation, which is why no other religion even makes that claim. Not only that, any claims that these further religions always make are always based upon the Bible, the Torah, our prophets. They don't say, that's nonsense. They all agree. Ask your local imam, did God give the Torah to the Jewish people? If he's theologically honest, he's going to have to say yes. Came along Muhammad as the other prophet, they didn't accept him, and now they... But you have to say yes. They have to agree that happened. Do you see why this whole mass revelation claim, which is a major part of the Torah story, and actually holidays and everything we do about it, connects us to that one event? So what we're really saying is that we are the witnesses to that event. Although we weren't there, we don't have to be there. We have to look at the evidence. And do we feel connected to the evidence or not? It's a big claim. And it's kept us going. And by the way, there was an HMS. And they collected thousands of Jews together at the Kotel. Not that many years ago. And Elie Wiesel was there. And they read out this scroll that they all wrote in 6 languages. French and Ladino and Hebrew and English and Yiddish. And they said the most important thing for us is the next generation. How are we going to pass it on? And it didn't really pass on so well. And what's amazing is that we have passed on this thing for hundreds of years and even thousands of years. Not a small thing to do, especially without a land and without a language for most people. Which takes us to our final question for the remaining 3 minutes we have together. Excuse me. Some sugar. Oh, there it is. Wow. What a rush. Ha! Okay. The last question I have is this. Fine. Rabbi, I hear you. Has to be given to a lot of people, not just one person. One person, you could turn around many years later, like Maimonides says, and says, I don't believe it. I hear that. It can't be given in the land of Israel, because then you may think it's only in the land of Israel. We got that too. So the only other question I have is, why did the Torah have to be given in a desert? Why not go to a city? I mean, there were some rudimentary cities then. I mean, couldn't be given in Egypt. Egypt was a very big metropolis in its day. Before we left, we had some mitzvot. Some mitzvot were given to us before we left Egypt, right? Creating the Jewish calendar, the months. That happened in Egypt. The Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, right? That we ate for many years. Now we have a little remembrance of on the Pesach table, the little shank bone. Could have done it in Egypt, the whole thing, not just a few. So the only question I have is, why a desert? What's up with deserts? It's like the Middle East, you've got to do a desert. No, you don't. There's some nice cities. What's up with deserts? I'll take an answer. It is a metaphor. It's an actual place, but it's also a metaphor. Well, what do we know about deserts? Who owns the desert? No one. It's ownerless. It's barren. It's open. It's clear. You can't say this is my land. You can't say it's anyone's land. It's an open existence. The Torah had to be given open to anyone. It's not an academic study. It's not astrophysics. Right? It's not string theory that only a few people get to understand it. It's ownless, which means anyone can own it. And they actually say, make yourself like a desert, which is also a comment on humility, a very important character trait that we'll discuss in a couple of weeks. We do one whole class just on character traits and have a lot of fun. I promise. Make yourself like a desert, because the Torah was given in a desert. It's not owned by any one group. And people grow up thinking this. Oh, Judaism, Torah information, that's for the rabbis. Who says? That's just not true. It's open to anyone. No matter where you are, no matter what your age, your location, your language. We said it's bigger than any place or time. Or any one day. Make yourself into desert people. People want to know what this Torah is. And that is who we are as a people. We will pick this up in a 2 or 3 weeks' time. Have a great and successful week. Thank you.